Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to continue with the pendulum exercise, so let's go. First of all, we need to do a little bit of modeling just to create our pendulum, and there's a couple of things that I want to explain about the hierarchy that I was mentioning in the past video. So we're going to do a very simple rig. I'm going to start by creating a flat plane right here, and then I'm going to go to the front view. I am going to create a cylinder, which is going to be the first arm of our pendulum. Something like this is fine. Control D, have it right there. Control D, have it right there. And then we're gonna add a sphere down here. So the sphere is gonna be called weight underscore geo. This is gonna be arm C underscore geo. Oh, underscore geo, there we go. It's gonna be arm V underscore geo, arm A, this is the first one, underscore geo, and finally base underscore geo. So what we're gonna do is we need to modify the way we're going to be animating these things, because now instead of having just one element, one sphere like what we had in the past exercises, we have all of these different elements, and they need to animate in a sort of sequential way. So what I need to do is I need to parent these guys in the way that they're supposed to be ordered. So technically, if I move this base, I would expect this guy to follow, then this guy to follow, then this guy to follow, and finally this guy to follow. Now, I am also going to move the pivot points to the center place here. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just doing this exercise to show one of the other principles. We're going to be working with rigs shortly, very shortly, probably in the next video. And I really need to explain to you what's going to happen here, because this is something that's going to be happening in all of the rigs that we're going to be using. So, if I take this guy, and then select this next guy, the arm C, and hit P, what I'm doing here is I'm parenting this guy to this guy. So wherever this guy goes, the other guy, since it's a child of the chain, will follow. And I can continue doing this sort of chain here, going through each individual arm, and then finally going into the base. And what's cool about this, and we saw it with the spheres, is that if I animate this first part, everything else will follow with it, and we'll have a nice animation. That's we don't have to animate every single thing. We just animate the highest hierarchy, and then all of that animation is gonna be inherited everywhere else. Not only that, but each individual piece in the hierarchy will be able to have its own animation, and that's gonna allow us to create something a little bit more complex. So, one thing that I want to explain to you guys is something called double transforms. If I were to grab a cube, say this guy right here, and I duplicate it, and I make this cube a son of this cube, and I freeze transformation on both of them. Actually, I need to freeze transformation before we parent this and this. So now this guy moves both of the cubes, right? Now, if I move this cube to this side, like 100 units, this guy is also going to be moving 100 units. However, he has 0 transformations because he didn't move. His father, the guy on top of him, did the movement. So that means that I can also animate this guy moving, and we will create something called double transformations. So if we, or it's not called double transformations, it's just like it's an animation on each part of the hierarchy. Double transformation is something actually that's bad in rigging. So if I grab both of the elements, you can see both of them are highlighted here in the hierarchy, and I move them. This guy moved 100 units, but this guy moved 200 units because it moved its own 100 units plus the 100 units from the guy before. Okay, so this only happens with elements that are like connected in this sort of way, in this sort of parenting element. And the reason why this is going to be important is because I'm going to be able to grab these 3 arms, for instance, and if I rotate them, I'm going to be able to create this sort of swing effect. See that? Very cool. And the cool thing about this is that even though I'm only rotating this 30 degrees, this guy is rotating 30 degrees, but this guy is rotating its own 30 degrees plus the 30 degrees of its father, and then this guy is rotating 30 degrees plus the 30 degrees of its father plus the 30 degrees of the grandfather. So this guy is 90 degrees. You can see it's pretty much flat on the ground, okay? So that's going to be important for us, so keep that in mind. Now let's jump onto the animation. I'm going to go to my front view. I'm going to turn off the grid. I'm going to grab this box right here, the first box. I'm going to move it right about here. I'm going to press S, and then I'm going to move it 60 frames and position it right about here. If I do this, it's just a normal translation, right? However, we know, due to physics, that objects will drag, right? Like this guy right here, this weight, will take a little bit longer to start moving than the rest of the element. And the energy, the movement is going to be transmitted from the base all the way to the arms. So I know that eventually what's going to happen is if I grab these 3 arms, once this element reaches its final point, we'll have something like this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of these guys, hit S, and then on the first frame, I'm going to grab these guys, and on the rotation, hit 0. And again, S. So now we have this. Now, what would happen when this thing stops? What's going to happen? Well, of course, this weight is going to push the whole arm to the other way, and it's going to start swinging. So I'm going to grab these guys. Let's go to frame 70. I'm going to rotate them so that they swing one way. And then let's go to frame 80. Rotate them so that they swing the other way, a little bit less, of course. And then frame 90. A little bit less, frame 100, a little bit less, frame 110, a little bit less. We need a couple more frames here. So let's increase our time slider. Let's go 120, a little bit less, 120, a little bit less, 130, a little bit less, 140, almost nothing. And then let's say 150, we finally rest. So we go to 0. So now if we play the animation, we're going to get this. Doing, 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 doing. Which looks good, right? Like just by having this, it already looks good. But we're not using one of the principles that we're going to be exploring, which is called follow through. Now, before we do the follow through though, what are you noticing here? We have a slow in and a slow out, which is also one of the principles of animation. And this thing, the swing, starts a little bit too late. Like the platform is pretty much stopped and then this thing happens. And usually I would expect the movement to happen a little bit sooner. So I'm going to grab all of these frames and let's delay them like 10 frames. And let's see how this looks. Okay, that looks a little bit better. I think it's a little bit too fast now. So let's grab all of these guys. All of these guys and push them like 3 frames, something like that. Animation is a lot of trial and error. You need to find what the specific element is. Now, we also have a little bit of a slow in and slow out on the translation here and X. We can keep this a little bit more linear so that we don't lose as much momentum and the stop is a little bit more sudden. So let's do this. Okay, that looks a little bit better. I think we can delay this a little bit more. Let's try that. Remember, when we're moving the frames, we always use this middle mouse arrows. We do not use these ones. We use these ones to scale the elements, but right now, no need to scale. Okay, so that doesn't look that bad. I do think that we can still keep this a little bit more faster. Sorry for my English. Sometimes I use the wrong words, but hopefully the concepts are clear. So yeah, that seems to be working. So as you can see, this is swinging very, very nicely. Now, the only issue I have with this animation is the fact that this animation is very tense, right? Like the wire seems to be made out of a very solid material and it doesn't seem to be flowing like a rope. It's more like a metal wire, right? And if we want to add a little bit more naturality to it, what we're going to do is the following. We're going to grab the objects here. And if we take a look at the graph editor, it's quite obvious what's happening here. It's rotating in C very, very smoothly. No need to break the tangents or change the weight. This is working perfectly. I mean, we could add a little bit of weight and that would make the swing like a little bit harder to one side, but I think that's fine right now. But what I'm seeing here is that the 3 arms that we have right here are swinging at the exact same time. See? Like they're all swinging at the exact same time. And if we think about what we talked about before, the fact that the energy or the movement is transmitted from top to bottom, I would expect each individual part of this chain to be moving in a slightly different time, slightly delayed, right? So what I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to grab the second arm and the third arm, both of them. I'm going to grab all of the animation frames from here, not the first one, just all of these guys, and I'm going to give it 2 frames. 1, 2. Okay? And then I'm going to grab the last arm. I'm going to select all of the frames again, and I'm going to give it 2 more frames. 1, 2. What we're doing here is we're changing the way that the animation is happening. We're not changing the animation. We're changing the time at which the animation happens. So all of the arms are going to follow the exact same animation. However, they're gonna be slightly delayed. And by delaying them, we're gonna create this sort of follow through, which is the principle of animation. And this happens with arms, this happens with legs, if your character is wearing a scarf, if you have a tail, ears, like a ponytail, like there's a lot of things that use this principle where the outermost part of the object is going to be slightly delayed because the action happens first on the center of mass, which in this case is up here. So now if we play this, look at the difference. Now when this thing swings, it's going to swing a lot nicer. See how that very natural move is happening there? That's exactly what we're going for. Let me close this and zoom in so that we can see a little bit clearer. Let's turn this on. And we get this very nice flow here. Okay, so this only happens, or the only reason why we have this is because we're offsetting the different parts of the arm. We're offsetting the top, the middle, and the bottom just by 2 frames. Sometimes you even do it just by 1 frame in certain areas, and it will still give you this very natural look. When you have a character, for instance, and he's breathing, not all of the movement from the breathing happens at the same time. You breathe first with the chest, then with the shoulders, and at the end with the head and the arms. So you have this overlap, and you have this follow through of actions where not all the actions are happening at the same time. It's the exact same actions, but not all of the same time. Now, this step is recommended to be done at the end of the timing stage. So you first do your key poses, the first, like the beginning and the end. We then do the timing so that things flow nicely, and then we do this breakup so we get this more natural look. Why? Because now if I select everything, you're gonna see that our timeline gets a little bit dirty because we have a way more keyframes pretty much everywhere, and it's gonna be a little bit more difficult to understand what's going on. Of course, if I select each individual one, it's very clear what's happening, but if I try to select everything, it gets really messy, and people very frequently have issues with this. So I strongly recommend that whenever you're gonna do this sort of follow through and overlap, you wait until the very end of your animation once you have your poses ready, and then we're gonna do it. Okay, otherwise things are gonna get a little bit tricky. And that's it, guys. This is the exercise. This is the follow through and overlap. With this, we've pretty much covered the basics of animation. We're now going to jump onto module 2, where we're going to be exploring rigs, and we're going to be doing a lot of very cool different exercises that hopefully you're going to be able to learn a lot from. And yeah, so make sure to keep practicing. If this doesn't work the first time, try it again. Make sure you check the very first part of the video, because this hierarchy right here, the way we created this, the way or the place where we position the pivot points, all of those things are really important for this example to work. Otherwise, your pendulum is not going to work properly. So get your hands on Maya and start animating. Make sure you get all of these elements right, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.